There's been a lot of really good horror films released this year. Late Night with the Devil, Abigail, and The First Omen are all popular and celebrated amongst horror fans. However, there is one film that sadly isn't as loved, and that's 2024's Frogman, a found footage horror movie about a half-man, half-frog creature armed with a magic wand from the scariest place known to man, Ohio. And I would know. I am also from Ohio, but Frogman is a neat little indie horror film with well-written characters, really scary moments, and a really cool use of the found footage format. And it's definitely a film I recommend more people see, so I'm going to avoid spoilers in this review. The found footage format isn't a new idea by any means. There's a bunch of good found footage movies and a bunch of bad ones, but Frogman sets itself apart from previous examples by doing a bunch of super inventive things. For starters, the characters filming their scary encounters actually make sense with the story. Dallas, Amy, and Scotty are trying to prove the existence of the Loveland Frogman, so of course they're going to be filming everything they see. This includes both the scary stuff towards the end of the film, as well as the funnier stuff towards the beginning. You fully understand why every piece of footage was recorded. That also ties into the cameras used in the film. Characters will switch between using their iPhone cameras, as well as Dallas's old camcorder that he used as a kid when he first saw a glimpse of the Frogman. And this just adds more realism because of course people in modern day would whip out their phones and start recording. It's something seemingly everyone does nowadays. The film also makes good use of night vision. Oftentimes the film will dip back and forth between using night vision and not, which gives the third act a very sporadic feel. Which, yeah, the film does get very shaky towards the end, and this may turn a lot of people away, especially if you get motion sickness from watching really shaky footage. But it didn't ruin the film for me, and again, it helped with the realism factor. The editing is also very interesting. This movie very much does feel like all the footage these characters filmed stitched together into one sequence. So the movie does feel pretty slow at times, but in a way it adds a little more to the scariness of Frogman. It really gives you an uneasy feeling that the footage you're watching may or may not be the final days these characters have. There's also the YouTuber slash social media influencer side to the story. Dallas is beefing with a cryptid YouTuber named Jeremy J.
You, Jeremy J.
Which may or may not be a fun jab at Jeremy Johns. And as a certified movie YouTuber myself, I thought that joke was pretty fun. And speaking of Dallas, I think him and the rest of the characters are surprisingly well written. He saw something as a kid and no one believes him, so it's very easy to understand his motivations. And you can feel his desperation as he drags his friends down the Frogman rabbit hole. It's a really fascinating case study on what desperation can drive someone to do. Scotty and Amy are fairly well written as well. This trio of characters have great chemistry with one another, which makes Dallas leading them further along this dark path kinda heartbreaking. Although there is a bit of a romantic edge between Dallas and Amy, which I felt wasn't very well developed. I just couldn't get attached to these two characters having this will they won't they sort of relationship. It just didn't seem too important to the movie. If that was removed, the overarching story wouldn't really change at all. If I had to choose a best character, it would probably be Scotty. He's sort of like the audience character in the way that he's always saying the things the audience would be thinking. He's the most rational, and we mostly watch the movie from his point of view since he's the cameraman for most of it. And also, he's just the funniest.
Well, good morning, sunshine.
And speaking of the funny, this film has some surprisingly comedic moments. The first half of the movie is Amy and Scotty goofing off to the dismay of Dallas, who's trying to be serious. There is the running gag of Amy being this Norma Jean character, which I thought added some fun reoccurring humor, especially since Norma Jean was essentially trolling Dallas. I mean, look at him, he's so salty. And really, I enjoyed all the scenes of these characters exploring Loveland, and that extends to the interviews. My, oh my, the interviews. The locals of Loveland, Ohio are so friggin' funny, and it's really interesting how they all drop their own theories and little tidbits on Frogman, including a little piece of information that has since become a little meme between the people who've seen this film.
So Frogman
Yeah, he does.
Also, the film opens up with a young Dallas and his family, and the family dynamic is spot on, especially the dad. This dad character is so funny.
Oh, look at those clouds, honey. Isn't that beautiful? You're so pretty. Yeah, so pretty.
Kevin.
I will say though, the film had a reoccurring editing bit that got old kind of quick. A character will say something like, "No, we're not gonna do that thing," and then it'll cut away to them doing that thing.
We're not stopping.
Oh, come on.
I'm Norma I mean, you look good.
That happened like 5 or 6 times, and it stopped being funny the second time. Even though this movie is a riot at some moments, it is most certainly a horror film. The final half of the film is very intense all throughout. The found footage elements make for some very atmospheric imagery. There is some really good sound design that puts you right there in the woods with these characters. And the film takes some extremely dark turns that I didn't see coming at all. I just sort of sat there in shock at what I was looking at, both because of how grim it was and all the awesome creature effects. There are some really talented prosthetic and makeup effects on screen that really stuck with me. Although the film does use a lot of digital disruption effects, which I didn't love, those sort of took me out of the movie. But really, the thing I adored about this movie above all is the originality. Everyone complains, oh, they don't make original movies anymore, which hasn't ever been true, and Frogman is a good example of that. You don't get a feature-length found footage movie about the Loveland Frogman that incorporates all the different elements of the creature's lore every day. Heck, I'm willing to bet this is the only one. And I especially love how it utilizes the Frogman lore over the course of the movie. We learn about the Frogman's different behaviors and powers, and we see how that affects the stories and the scares within it. It's honestly really cool. Frogman is a great little indie horror movie, and I think more people should be talking about it. It is a little unconventional, especially with how it's filmed and the darker points the story explores. And there are some issues that comes with the movie with this low of a budget, like some iffy acting at times, some clunky dialogue, and some visuals that might be hard to follow, but Frogman is a really entertaining horror flick that I highly recommend. It doesn't have a Blu-ray or DVD release yet. There is a sweet VHS though, but you can rent it on Amazon Prime or YouTube. So if you're in the mood for a creepy little movie about a creepy little frog dude, I highly recommend you check out Frogman. I also recommend you check out my video on The Legend of Boggy Creek, another movie about another scary monster. Or if you're in the mood for something else, you can click on this video that YouTube picked out just for you. Yeah, those are both pretty solid videos. Both are pretty good. Just click on one of them. Either one. You'll be happy, I promise.